Right, good afternoon, comrades. Good afternoon to people who've just joined this meeting, and good afternoon to our viewers on the live stream. This is the second part of the meeting called by the Juche Study Group of England and UK KFA, commemorating the December anniversaries of the DPRK. We've been speaking earlier about the struggle of Comrade Kim Jong-il, great leader Comrade Kim Jong-il, for socialism in Korea, and also about the revolutionary activities of Madam Kim Jong-suk, the anti-Japanese woman guerrilla fighter. And we've also had a presentation about the anniversary of Comrade Kim Jong-un being elected Supreme Commander of the Korean People's Army. And I would also add that on 24th of December, 27 years ago, the 9th plenary meeting of the 6th Central Committee of the Workers' Party Korea decided to appoint the great leader, Comrade Kim Jong-il, as Supreme Commander of the Korean People's Army. And this was a great step forward on the long march of the Sungun revolutionary leadership. The Korean People's Army, founded by the great leader Comrade Kim Il-sung, is the reliable defender of socialist Korea. Moreover, as the DPRK is on the front line of the struggle against imperialism, the Korean People's Army is the defender of world socialism and the anti-imperialist forces of the world. So, by assuming the post of Supreme Commander of the Korean People's Army, Comrade Kim Jong-il assumed responsibility for not only defending his own country, but the destiny of world socialism and world peace. He carried forward the cause of Juche army building started by the great leader, President Kim Il-sung, the excellent traditions of the Korean People's Army forged by the great leader Generalissimo Kim Il-sung in the anti-Japanese armed struggle and the Fatherland Liberation War were maintained and carried forward. As Supreme Commander, Comrade Kim Jong-il built up the KPA as the army of the leader with a steel-like unity based on the Juche and Sungun idea. This was complemented by the blossoming of the great army and people unity under the Sungun revolutionary leadership of great leader Comrade Kim Jong-il. Such unity is unknown anywhere else in the world. Comrade Kim Jong-il began his Sungun revolutionary leadership on the 25th of August 1960 at the Seoul-View Hyung-soo Guards number 105th Division of the Korean People's Army. As a result of his tireless guidance to the KPA, he accumulated great experience in commanding arts, becoming a great commander. At the time when the great leader Comrade Kim Jong-il was appointed Supreme Commander, the international situation was complex, owing to the treachery of the revisionists who frustrated socialism in many countries. The DPRK faced acute threats and from all kinds of international reactionary forces, including US imperialism. Supreme Commander Comrade Kim Jong-il defeated all these attempts to stifle Korean socialism by force, defending Juche Korea, the bastion of socialism. Comrade Kim Jong-il shattered the military blackmail of the US imperialists by ordering the KPA into a semi-war state on the 9th of March 1993. And in December 1994, and I remember this incident well, anti-aircraft gunners of the Korean People's Army shot down the US helicopter, and the DPRK triumphed in the Yongpyong Island shelling incident of 2010. A nuclear thunderbolt of Sungun hit the US imperialists when the DPRK tested its own self-reliant nuclear deterrent. The great leader, Comrade Kim Jong-il, administered Sungun politics by building up the KPA as the core force of the Korean Revolution. He ensured the KPA was not only strong in arms, But strong in ideology and politics, Supreme Commander Kim Jong-il fully promoted the revolutionary soldier spirit, the epitome of the militant Sangam ideology, which pulsated throughout society, leading to world-startling feats like the construction of the Anpyong power station. Thus, the 20 years of Kim Jong-il's command of the Korean People's Army were years of great achievements in which the KPA had been strengthened greatly. Because of the decisive role of the anti-imperialist military front, there have been many victories in other fields such as the economy and culture. We recall these achievements to remember the great leader Comrade Kim Jong-il as an ever victorious, unwilled, brilliant commander. The Sangam revolutionary cause of army leadership is now continued by dear respected Marshal Kim Jong-un, Supreme Commander of the KPA. KPA will be totally victorious under the command of dear respected Marshal Kim Jong-un. Thank you. Right. Now I'm going to sort of come on to speaking about self-reliance, which is very much the core of the Korean Revolution. And then I can perhaps take a few questions, and then I'll give a quick report back from the KFA International meeting. And when I was visiting the DPRK in September together with the other members of the delegation, two of which are here now, present with me, we watched the civilian mass demonstration that followed the great military parade of the DPRK marking the 70th anniversary of the foundation of the DPRK. My guide translated some of the slogans for me on the floats that glided by. One of the slogans was, "Let us live our own way," a slogan that was first put forward by Comrade Kim Jong-il on the 25th of December 1978 in the speech, "Let us increase the party's fighting efficiency and bring about a fresh turn in the building of socialism." The slogan, "Let us live our own way," was a striking and bold slogan, a militant revolutionary slogan that declared Korea's will to live its own way, free from imperialism. It was an expression of the Juche-based faith of the DPRK, guided by the great leader, Comrade Kim Il-sung, to independently and self-reliantly construct socialism without being fettered by big power chauvinism or US imperialism. At the time when the slogan was put forward, the DPRK faced intense pressure from the modern revisionists and opportunists, as well as the sanctions and blockade of the US imperialism and the machinations of the South Korean puppets. In order to counter these manifold attempts to derail the building of socialism, a high degree of self-reliance was required. It was the demand of the times, as the great leader, Comrade Kim Jong-il, pointed out. It is only when one displays a great revolutionary spirit of self-reliance that one can have faith in one's own strength, exploit the internal resources of one's own country to the maximum, and conduct the revolution and construction with success. Experience shows that only when one gives full play to the revolutionary spirit of self-reliance that one can surmount every manner of difficulty and ordeal. Even though the anti-Japanese guerrillas received no assistance from a regular army or from a state in the past, they, by displaying a high degree of the revolutionary spirit of self-reliance, overcame manifold difficulties and hardships and defeated the brigandish Japanese imperialists and accomplished the noble cause of national liberation. In the period after the Korean War, our party members and working people rehabilitated the devastated economy by our own efforts to transform the country into a powerful socialist industrial state in a short span of time. The situation we are in today demands that we display to a high degree the revolutionary spirit of self-reliance. At present, no country is willing to help another, nor is any country in a position to help another, even should she want to, end of quote. Now, of course, some worshippers of big powers, the I Love China and Russia fan club, would not like to hear the last sentence of that quote, but it reflects a basic truth. And this was basically reiterated at the 7th Congress of the Workers' Party of Korea in May 2016, when respected Marshal Kim Jong-un said, "Today, we have nothing but our own strength to rely on. No one is willing to help us and see our country reunified, powerful, well-off and flourishing. It is only when we are possessed of the spirit of self-reliance and self-development that we can go through any trials and hardships and achieve the greatest successes, even in the worst conditions. We should reject big power worship, independence on foreign forces, and push ahead with the building of a powerful socialist country with our own strength, technology and resources, and in the revolutionary spirit of self-reliance and fortitude. We should also achieve national reunification, a long-cherished desire of our nation, by strengthening our own motive force," end of quote. The slogan, "Let us live our own way," is a dynamic slogan that has inspired the Korean people to great feats by fully displaying the revolutionary spirit of self-reliance. The Korean people stepped up socialist construction under the banner of Juche and built a socialist country, Juche, independent, self-sufficient, self-defensive, under the leadership of the great leader Comrade Kim Jong-il. By applying the Sangam, the DPRK became a strong military power with a nuclear deterrent. Today, the slogan is just as relevant as it was in 1978, and in fact more so, as in many countries of the world do not live their own way, but are crushed under the weight of globalization, Coca-Colaization, cultural imperialism, and the intervention of US imperialists. Let us live our own way should be a watchword for all anti-imperialists and anti-globalists. Today, under the leadership of dear respected Marshal Kim Jong-un, guided by the Juche idea, the Sangam idea is asserting its independence, true to the idea of let us live our own way. In past years, the DPRK has launched its own satellite and conducted nuclear tests in defiance of the US imperialists and big powers. The DPRK, also 5 years ago, defeated internal traitors who wanted to sell the DPRK out to other countries. Thus, under the banner of self-reliance and self-development, the DPRK is marching forward to the goal of a thriving socialist country and independent reunification. Thank you. Right, we've got a little bit of space of a bit of time. Anyone got any questions, or anyone who hasn't spoken want to make a contribution? Yes, Joe.
A couple of questions. One is, why do you think, you're talking about refuting great power worship and stuff like that. What I was wondering to myself when Trump and Kim met and they're talking about, I don't know, more investment and giving up nukes and stuff like that, wouldn't that increase dependence on Russia and China for defense if they dismantle the nuclear arsenal? And also, presumably, the objective is to gain, well, I don't know, using the sanctions as well, but investment from America and increasing dependence on America for, I mean, just allowing them to penetrate it with foreign investment.
Right. Well, if I've understood the question rightly, I think the main point to be understood here is it's a myth that's been created that the DPRK was going to unilaterally disarm. There's no way that the DPRK is unilaterally giving up its nuclear weapons. They will only do that when the US abandons its hostile policy, abandons its nuclear threat to the DPRK and military threat to the DPRK. There's no unconditional denuclearization, and DPRK held the summit, which was a measure that diffused tension quite a lot. I mean, I remember, I think in this room about 1 year ago, just over 1 year ago, we were talking about what we would do in the event of the outbreak of war between the DPRK and the US. And really no one thought that a summit would happen between the DPRK and US leaders, but, the summit happened. So the DPRK, DPRK took that step for peace, but I say it's not sort of handing over its laying down its nuclear weapons just like that. And it made it very clear before the summit that the DPRK rejects the so-called Libyan model of denuclearization, where Gaddafi, and I know a lot of people admired Gaddafi, but Gaddafi basically dismantled the Libyan nuclear program when it was in its infancy, and actually hand-surrendered a few materials to the US. DPRK is not going to do that. What the DPRK talk about is the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, not the denuclearization of just the DPRK. And denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula means that any US nuclear weapons, which are still in South Korea, are withdrawn. And moreover, as Alex mentioned in his speech, they can't fly B-2 nuclear bombers across Korea. They can't have nuclear submarines. They cannot have nuclear weapons targeting the DPRK. Only when that is done, then there will be denuclearization. I mean, as to question of investment or economic cooperation, the DPRK has never opposed economic cooperation with other countries, including capitalist countries. But if you read KCNA, in the space of 1 week, I've seen 2 articles on self-reliance, self-sufficiency, and on the NAINARA website. And, basically they're going to hold to the policy of self-reliance. That's going to be the core strategy, rather than, hoping, that the US is going to sort of give them something. And so the motivation of the summit was to avoid the outbreak of a war on the Korean Peninsula, which would have been quite hard to predict the result, to predict whether this would have been confined to the Korean Peninsula, whether this would have spread beyond the Korean Peninsula and become a world war. I hope I've answered your question directly.
I have a follow-up. That's okay.
Right.
Is it whatsoever conceivable that America would ever submit to verification procedures if there was an agreement for total denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula? Is there any way to ensure that they've actually removed their nukes from South Korea and recalled the submarines and so on? And also, is there anything stopping them from ever, if they dismantle all their nuclear development sites in DPRK and America decides to change its mind, is there any guarantee whatsoever that America wouldn't send them back because they have so many nukes and it's just a matter of flying one over?
Right. Yeah, some interesting points you raised. This was actually the stumbling block 25, 27 years ago, because the US claimed to withdraw their nuclear weapons from South Korea then, but refused to allow any third party, let alone the DPRK, to actually confirm this. And then later, when they were asked about their nuclear weapons, they gave the strange answer. They would neither confirm nor deny the presence of US nuclear weapons in South Korea. Now, you can take that any way you want, really. I think DPRK and a lot of people would take it as meaning that the nukes are still there, and indeed at a later date it was revealed that some US nuclear weapons still are in South Korea, and I believe there are DU weapons in South Korea, depleted uranium weapons, which are very dangerous. Now, as to making the US accept verification, well, this is one of the things that the DPRK will be pressing for. You know, they're not going to unilaterally allow verification. But one of the things we've got to remember is the situation is very different to the 1950s when the US started the war, to the 1960s of the Pueblo incident, and to the 1990s. The DPRK now has a nuclear deterrent force. It has the H-bomb. And as respected Marshal Kim Jong-un said in his New Year address for 2018, the nuclear button is on my desk. And that is a big game changer, basically. And in fact, that is why the US accepted a summit with the DPRK. They would have never done otherwise. You know, they wouldn't try to negotiate with a non-nuclear power. That's a fact. The DPRK would have faced the same fate as Libya, Iraq, and Yugoslavia. You know, basically, if the US doesn't want to accept verification, then I assume that the DPRK wouldn't. And I assume, you know, the whole process would collapse. I mean, even the US is admitting now that, you know, that they can't put a time frame on this process. And, you know, we are talking about process that even if it comes about, will take years and years to achieve.
Thanks.
Right. Jamal.
Good question. Well, do you think the root cause of the Korean problem is the division of Korea?
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Division of Korea caused by the US. Yes.
Yes, that is the root cause. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Anyone else?
You know, this it's a self-reliant economy the DPRK has. Is this why the imperialist media, because the DPRK has a self-reliant economy, it doesn't need external dependency? Does that mean the imperialist media always labels the DPRK as a hermit state, as isolated?
One of the reasons,
Yeah.
but I mean the term the Hermit Kingdom actually goes back way before the DPRK, and it was a term used in the 19th century to describe that, you know, the entire Korean peninsula. You know, it's basically is a racist and colonialist term. You know, that was invented by imperialists. But yeah, I mean, the imperialists will slander the DPRK as closed society. You know, meaning that it, you know, because it can rely on itself, and you know, we've sent delegations of the DPRK in the last few years, and you know, you've had several rounds of sanctions, basically in the last few years. In fact, the UN started putting sanctions on the DPRK back in 2006, and you know, we couldn't see any effect of the sanctions. I mean, you know, well,
Not whatsoever.
that's right. James,
No,
did you?
Yeah.
That's right. No,
It didn't feel like a closed off society either.
No.
There was a lot of
It's
foreigners
always funny. There's a lot of war tension in this country. When we were in, I believe, in August 2017,
yeah,
when Trump was giving his Fire and Fury speech, when we were out there, there was no tension in the DPRK in Pyongyang whatsoever.
no, people seem to be enjoying themselves, going about normally. That was the main thing.
It does seem though, but this sort of inter-Korean agreements and summits with Trump, it worries me that they're producing the old-fashioned type of propaganda with defectors and the like. The Channel 4 documentary, for example.
Yeah, that's.
I wonder if the US is trying to turn its back on the agreements slowly.
Yeah, I think that will be the plan of the US to try to. That will be the most likely scenario of the US, that they will try and slowly walk away. There won't be a sort of an abrupt end with sort of denunciations, but it will just slowly go away. And I think Alex is right that the broadcast of that Channel 4 program was very old-fashioned style hostility. Very, I think some people who are not here said, in fact, very shoddy and ineffective anti-DPRK propaganda. That was boring to watch. And it was a bit pointless.
Well, I think it was, because it was basically consisted of so-called defectors holding phones to their ear, speaking to people in the DPRK. Apparently, there was not a lot of action going on in the documentary, but it's a return to the crude propaganda of the past. I think Michael Palin's documentary probably represented the best you can get from Western sources.
I think that's probably the best, like you say, best we'll ever see from Western source, and I suspect that was actually went ahead and on the premise that the DPRK US summit would be successful, and there would be actually quite a big change on the Crimean Peninsula.
Is there any chance that we could picket Channel 4 maybe? Because
it's a good idea.
Because that documentary still come at a time when there are peace negotiations going on.
Yes.
And it's quite an unfounded thing to do, really. It's not appropriate.
Well, I've put suggestions for a picket. I'm just waiting for people to get back to me. I think unrealistic to try in the rest of December, for a variety of reasons, unless people are available. But
you think next week would be too soon?
Well,
the thing is, I do think we need to do it near where the documentary is being broadcast.
Yeah, we don't want to do it too.
Yeah, because people have very short memories, unfortunately, in this country.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm available next week.
Yeah, I'm certainly available
next week.
Well, people give me a few dates, but we need to try and get numbers. It's no use. If you end up with a very small number of people, you just just get all the usual remarks, plus one certain other
it wouldn't be very effective
outfits. So we would have to look at good numbers. Plus, we need to give the authorities, I think, 6 days notice.
No, okay.
For such a thing, So, but I mean, it's certainly a good idea, something we should be doing, and we've never picketed Channel 4. We've done the BBC twice now, so I think Channel 4, and they have produced some very bad stuff in the past.
Yeah, it's not the first documentary they've made about the DPRK.
In fact, laughably, I think someone said basically it looked like they'd run out of budget and they'd, didn't have the money to sort of pay for fake footage to be created, which they have done in the past. So, they
show trains going into Auschwitz.
Really?
Oh, the usual comparison with the Nazis. Then.
No. There was. Don't ask me the particular of it, but there was some documentary, human rights thing on YouTube about the concentration camps and Camp Number 9 or whatever they call it, and somebody on YouTube came out and said, "Are you sure that's from Korea? Because I'm pretty sure that's footage of trains delivering prisoners to Auschwitz."
Mm.
And and he showed where it came from, and they literally just put footage of Auschwitz.
Well,
Wouldn't surprise me. Yeah.
you know, digressing a bit, but there was this business about, I think, 2 to 3 years ago where South Korea, you know, very decadent society, that has a sort of like, is it a mud festival?
Oh, the one with the women.
Yeah, they're covered in mud. And I saw this literally, was all over the internet saying it was what
It was
political
in-
prisoners.
Yeah, in the DPRK.
In the
I remember
DPRK,
that.
and it's actually 2 South Korean women in bikinis covered with mud, where they have this bizarre festival in so-called festival in South Korea, but that was actually, you know, put as being coming from the DPRK, you know.
That one.
Oh,
And yeah, Channel 4, what they did a quite long time ago was they made a so-called documentary about the DPRK, which was really filmed in Thailand, in the Yanbian autonomous region of China, which is populated by ethnic Korean people, and in South Korea. And you know, this was you know, broadcast as actually been in the DPRK, and that was very bad. And I think one of the producers of it, he was shown to have belonged to some sort of free market institute as well. But I'd say this time it was pretty, it looked like it was pretty low budget stuff, but so it means we should try and pick it. So maybe beginning of maybe sometime next week, but we will need the numbers. Otherwise, you know, we'll have to go for some time in January and try and build up the forces, you know, to be more than a few people for a picket.
Would you reckon it would be in the daytime, afternoon?
Yeah.
Well, you can do it in daytime. It's what, you know, what would like people to get back to me.
I'm probably available in the daytime.
Yeah, what when they're available, and if people let me know, we do it.
usually on a time as these. That's
Okay.
usually when we're picking.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Saturday or a weekday. So it's not a lot of time left really. You know, in December. You know, don't want me sort of.
We could do it in the new year, I suppose, but not too long after that.
No.
People will just forget.
Yeah, it shouldn't be too long.
Yeah. At least we're still fresh in the memory.
Yeah, well, people need to get back to me with dates.
What about another cultural event? The poster thing coming up next
The
year, isn't it?
poster, I'm going to get the posters, and so I hope that goes well. And I think we're trying to aim for the poster exhibition for the very early April.
Mm.
But we need to decide on venues,
Venues.
whether we try and go for central London or whether we Croydon.
It probably would be better to try Central London because Croydon, it has a
It's been out of
certain,
the way as well.
yeah, it's down the way. Is there any way we could do one on Korean oil paintings, for example, as well? Because their artwork, their oil paintings very good. I mean, I've got a few of them.
Well, you could bring them along to sell.
We should try and tour it as well, shouldn't we?
I was going to say, yeah,
try and take it around the country.
Well,
Take it
that's
up to
right.
Glasgow.
I mean, you know, we're getting on sort of KFA internal matters, but yeah, I mean, we really need to be doing events outside of London. You know, provincial cities. We've got a meeting in Derby coming up in the new year, but we must be having meetings in Stoke-on-Trent, in Liverpool, Scotland. Hopefully, we'll have a meeting sometime, and we should aim for a cultural event in a provincial city. It'd probably be easier to stage there because it would probably cost less than massive expense of London venues. Right, sorry, got a.
I hit you with another question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Could you comment on it's based on an observation of mine that's doesn't have a lot of context. I have a lot of reading and study to do about Korea, but I've noticed in the last few years since Kim Jong-un has assumed power, I love socialist culture, so I often watch videos of musical performances and stuff in Chinese and Korean on YouTube, and I noticed some performances in a kind of like a introduction of Disney characters and Mickey Mouse culture, which I found very odd, and I was wondering if you could comment on that. And the thought that comes into my mind is that it doesn't really. We talk about rejecting Coca-Colaization of the world and stuff. I think Disney and Mickey Mouse is like another arm of that, really, and it's just strange to see. And
Well, it only happened once.
Once.
Yeah, it only happened once.
Oh, okay.
I mean, if you watch all the performances of the Moribond band,
I love them.
I mean, you won't see that.
I must say as well, when we went to the children's hospital, they were sort of decorating children's characters. You won't find Disney characters there, and things like that. It's all sort of Korean stuff. They're saying that the Koreans don't totally reject international either. They're not totally isolated. You know, they are willing to look at other cultures.
Yeah, I mean,
have cultural exchanges.
I mean, I think the people dancing dressed as Disney characters, which also produced a moan from the US that the sanctions were being broken, and Disney claimed that their copyright had been broken as well. But I think that was a demonstration performance, and the idea was to show the variety of styles that they could use. And in fact, there's this extreme stereotype, it's totally closed. They don't know anything about the outside world there. Well, they have different repertoire of international music. And the Moribond band, they did a fantastic performance where you have the Sacred Wall. I think some was it Strauss?
Yes, there's Strauss. Well, yeah. Strauss waltzes. Yeah. Yeah.
Even when the DPRK performers came here, the disabled ones, they played some Western songs, didn't they?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, at the same, I mean that was, but really Disney characters. I don't think that's ever been repeated. And again, if you read the works on culture, they very strongly emphasise Juche in culture. But I mean, what's happened in recent years in the DPRK was, the DPRK pop groups when respected Marshal Kim Jong-un came to power, some of them had been around for a long time. Some of them have been around from the 80s, and it's a good work that we should study. I wish I'd bought a copy. I don't think there is a copy, but he spoke to social scientists, and he stressed the need, for one hand, continuity, but on the other hand, for innovation, and to avoid stereotyped and outdated styles. And the Moribond band is an example the new innovative style. But if you look at a lot of their music, it is actually very revolutionary. And in fact, 3 years ago they were supposed to tour China, and they got into China, and the Chinese cancelled the tour because some of their lyrics were considered too anti-American by the Chinese authorities, and the tour was cancelled. But I mean, it's unfortunate also that you arrived after the diplomats were here, because I think sort of maybe that's a question they perhaps could answer better. But I've only ever seen that happen once.
Thanks.
Right. Anything else? Right. Well, the only other thing to mention is last weekend I sort of jetted off to Spain, the cheap way, and attended the KFA International meeting along with Jose and David, who are based in this country. And we had a very good KFA International meeting. KFA work is going well. They're organising a new branch in Zimbabwe, and there's a project in Spain underway for a sort of virtual DPRK experience to be created there, and that's one very important project. And we're going to have another international meeting at the end of 2019 in Denmark. But
wasn't this one meant to be in Stockholm originally? They had to change it.
They changed it to Spain from Stockholm.
So is the Denmark one definitely confirmed it's actually going to be in Denmark?
I think so, yeah. So I hope it goes ahead in Denmark. But yeah, very good atmosphere. The meeting was held in the DPRK embassy in Madrid. The charge d'affaires, because they don't have an ambassador in Denmark, in Spain, because the Spanish expelled the DPRK ambassador, so they've only got like representation at charge d'affaires level. The charge d'affaires remembered me from the DPRK in 2012, which was amazing. And
why was the ambassador expelled?
Just this business that the US, the US put some resolution through the UN calling on countries to reduce the number of DPRK diplomats.
Really, they expelled the ambassador?
They expelled the ambassador. What was, I think, Italy and Mexico.
Even worse in the UK, aren't they, really, in that respect?
Yeah. Well, I think some countries said, no, we're going to keep the DPRK missions as they are. In fact, it fell flat on its face, because a lot of countries just quietly ignored it or carried out token expulsions. But unfortunately, Spain, and I think 2 or 3 other countries, they did actually go to the limit of it, actually expelling the ambassador, which was quite bad. But as I say, the embassy in Madrid's still functioning. And another thing I found they had a lot of DPRK students there who are studying at Spanish universities, which again is another myth about the DPRK. Oh, no one goes abroad. No one.
There's quite a few actually. I can remember when I was on the plane the first time going to DPRK. Students from Nigeria. I just got back from studying in Nigeria, some DPRK citizens. Are there any in the UK studying at the moment?
I don't know. I mean, I must ask the embassy. I mean, in the past, they had a few studying architecture, and there were a few at University of Kent,
Yeah.
and some at University in Newcastle.
Would it be possible to have some maybe DPRK students come over to the UK? I know they've done that in the past.
Yeah, I mean that would be a possibility.
Or maybe some sort of university exchange or some sort of cultural
Yeah.
exchange of some sort.
I can't remember the details. There was a controversy about the Open University in London not allowing Cuban students or something because of the sanctions.
Yeah, both Cuban and DPRK citizens got banned by the Open University.
Yeah, it's not so open university.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Was that overturned or was that still ongoing, that ban? Because there was a lot of controversy.
I don't see how.
Well, the Cubans, I think, got.
Cubans can get in there.
I think they might be able to get in. Maybe DPRK citizens should jam it with
Yes.
applications. Well, I think the OU, you pay a big fee now for it
I
anyway.
do, yeah.
It's not as
It's not,
good.
it's not very open at
It's
all.
not as good as it was.
I think it used to be.
Right. I think we fairly covered anything. Any other points or ideas for future activities? Criticisms even?
I don't know.
Right, okay. Nothing else I need to say about the KFA International meeting.
No.
Right, okay. Well, I will thank people for their attendance, for their good attention during the speeches. It was amazing attention during the speeches. You could hear a pin drop, literally. So, I mean, wish everyone a safe journey home, and anyone who has spare cash, we have a small cup here for a collection. Thank you. Right, thank you very much. Right.
Okay.